Welcome back to another episode of Sidelined with Dr. Ethan Ellul, the Osteopath. In this episode, we'll be talking about Ash Johnson's fractured fibula. Eth, thank you for joining us, mate.
No worries. Good to be back.
Thank you. First off, for people who aren't in the know, like me, yesterday on Instagram, or the other day on Instagram, I posted up that Ash Johnson, came out that he had a fractured fibula.
Yeah.
After that marking injury, marking attempt. And I said, oh, look, at least it's not broken. Like, there could be worse things. Because to me, in my head, like a fracture is just, call it a fracture and call it a break.
Yeah.
The Webster Dictionary, I'm sure, says two different things. But you're telling me that the fracture is a medical term for a break.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There is a lot of confusion around that, but basically, it's the exact same thing. There's different types of fracture, obviously, like a stress fracture.
Which we saw what Tom Mitchell had a stress fracture.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, which is more like a repetitive sort of overuse thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, a fracture and a break is basically the same thing. A fracture is just the medical term for a break. So it's very similar to like calling your shoulder blade the scapula.
Yeah.
It's the same, exactly the same thing. Scapula is a anatomical term. Shoulder blades, the layman's term for it. So
that's what happens when you go to like years and years of university, right? You get to use the fancy words, and I'm just like, it's not broken. It's not broken. It's fine. It's fine. So. Yeah, what does this sort of look like now? We saw that his partner Sarah put up that he was in the hospital yesterday. I assume it might be for surgery, but he definitely was in the hospital yesterday after, because it happened on Friday afternoon. What does that sort of look like? What is it? We don't know exactly where it is on his fibula, but we know that it's there. It looks like it could be an ankle though.
Yeah, I suspect it's. Like if I were to just describe it in basic terms to someone, I'd probably call it a broken ankle, to be honest. Because a fractured fibula, your fibula runs up the outside of your leg, literally from the ankle to the knee. Okay. So it could be fractured at any point along that course. Most commonly, it's going to be like towards the ankle. So literally the bone like on the outside of your foot that you can literally press is your fibula.
Right.
That bit that sticks out. Yeah. That everyone would refer to as the ankle. That's your fibula.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I suspect it's like a broken ankle, basically. There's often other injuries involved as well.
Yep.
In recent years, like commentators and media love to throw around the term like the syndesmosis or high ankle sprain.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of syndesmosis.
Yeah. And with this type of injury, that can be involved as well, because your fibula, along with your tibia, they sort of join together and they make up the syndesmosis.
Yep.
So obviously, if one of them's fractured, you can compromise the syndesmosis as well. Yeah. So it really does depend like what other injuries are involved, but given that they've got him in for surgery this quickly,
which is what it looks like.
I suspect like it's not just the fractured fibula. There's probably some ligamentous injury and maybe some syndesmotic involvement as well. And so it will be a lengthy recovery.
Far out.
It's hard to say because we don't, like I said,
100%. We're only going by what the club has showed us.
There's all different types of, fractured fibulas. There's different classification and there's different injury that could be involved. But like I said, given that they've pushed him to sort of surgery straight away, as far as we know, I'd suggest it's probably around like a 6-month sort of turnaround.
Out, man.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Oh my God.
Hopefully that's not the case, and it's just the fractured fibula, because that's probably more like probably 12 weeks or so.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, if the ankle was unstable, meaning that it's the bones are like able to move around, basically, then that's when they need to fix it with surgery and stabilize it. And that's when there's that prolonged sort of recovery. Whereas if it's just a fracture and the ankle isn't unstable, so the joint can actually hold itself together with no problem.
It's a bit different.
It's very different. So hopefully it's not that sort of 6-month plus recovery.
Yeah.
But yeah, worst case, that's what it definitely could be.
Yeah, because when in that footage, you kind of see him when he goes up for the mark, you kind of see his ankle shift under his weight.
Yeah.
It just looks.
It was nuts.
And like, I don't know if I told you, but at the ground, he was like wailing in pain. Like I hadn't heard something like that before.
Yeah, yeah. And it'd be, well, I've never experienced that, but
Yeah.
I could only imagine how painful it would be. With that type of injury, the thing that can cause a lot of the damage is, I was talking before about the tibia and the fibula sort of joined together.
Yeah.
In between those two bones, there's another bone. And so when you're landing like that, if there's a little bit of a twist, the bone in the middle, which is the talus, can like twist, and then that separates the fibula and the tibia apart.
Yeah.
And that's what causes like a syndesmosis injury and all sorts of other like fractures. He could have fractured the tibia as well, which is on the other side.
Yeah.
In conjunction with the fibula. So yeah, that mechanism looks pretty intense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be bad.
That's so important because, like, in that VFL game, he was having a really good game. He was named in the emergency list. And Ash Johnson is one of those guys where he is working really hard to get into that team, and he's probably the next forward that if one of the big guys goes down, he's literally the next guy that we would call up. You know, Mason Cox as well, I guess. But now, so best case is 3 months, but worst case could be 6+ if it's like all the tendons and everything. But we're just not going to know that until the club come back and say he's had a successful surgery.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Far
exactly
out.
Right.
And what's what's the recovery like in there? Is it sort of like moon boot, and you know at least he can still do like upper body and stuff like that?
Yeah, he'll be in a moon boot for sure after the surgery. The hardest thing with the ankle, any ankle injury really, is the stability component.
Yeah.
Because of the trauma to that region, and obviously your ankle is your contact with the ground.
Yep.
It's very hard to regain that confidence on it and the stability required. So that's the hardest part of sort of the rehab. And also after a significant trauma like that, the pain and swelling, even after surgery, can linger for a long time.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to get swelling out of an ankle because it's close to, well, it's the furthest joint away from the core of your body. So it's hard for the body to pump that swelling back and out of there.
Okay.
So yeah, like some people will, like say you bruise your calf or even your hammy, the bruising often goes down away from the site. So the ankle's the last sort of joint there.
Spot, so the last exit.
Yeah, so the swelling can really take ages to heal. So that creates a challenge there as well. Yeah. But the good thing is, like, you can train, other things and upper body. And they might be able to actually get him training some lower limb with certain types of machines and whatnot. Like, for example, if I put a weight here, say, and I could train my hip flexor by lifting that. Right. And my ankle's not going to.
And because then you've got the moon boot, so it's all
so yeah, they might find some ways to get some lower limb strengthening in. Yeah. But he'll be in a boot for a little while, probably 4 to 6 weeks, I reckon, in that boot.
And just before we go, if so we're 1 round into the season, which is insane. So the mid-season draft is, well, in mid-season, so like rounds 14 or 15. If it's a 6-month injury, what are we in now? March. So 6 months takes us to September, pretty much, doesn't it? So if it is a 6-month, let's just say it's worst case scenario. We don't know, but let's just say it's worst case scenario. Would you put him on the long-term injury list and say, get yourself right for next year, we'll take another pick in the draft?
Yeah, I probably would. Yeah. Because it's like with any injury as well. Like once you have an injury, if you haven't rehabbed it properly and given player the time to regain the confidence in that injured site, then you're always at more risk of re-injuring it.
Yeah.
No matter how good the surgeon and the rehab is, there's always a higher risk there. So yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't bring him back at that point.
Yeah.
Particularly because it's like finals as well, so it's the highest grade of
you have
footy.
to play. You're putting your body through even more stress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd if it is that worst case scenario, I'd
get right for next year.
Get him right for next year. Yeah.
Far out. That's
yeah.
Sending all our love to Ash and his family and his partner, because that was it just. At the ground, it looked horrible, sounded horrible, and now it just even sounds. If it's worst case, 6 months is just. Yeah, in football, that's a sentence and a half.
Oh, 100%.
Sentence and a half.
100%.
All right, so we'll wrap this up now. Thankfully, no injuries out of the absolute. The only injury that came out of the Collingwood-Port Adelaide game was a thrashing of 92 points to the Power. So they're going down Adelaide Highway, whatever the friggin' hell highway that is, and they'll be crying all the way home. So that's the only injury that came out of that. But Ethan, from Baseline Osteo here in Pascoe Vale, thank you so much, mate. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Ta.
Cheers.